English is a thief. It is stolen from Latin, French, Norse, Greek, and Arabic. Everyone knows this. But there is one source language almost no English speaker ever thinks about. A language that gave us some of our most common, most everyday words. Words spoken in pubs and in parliament, in churches and in living rooms, by people with no idea where those words came from. That language is Hebrew. Alongside it, Yiddish. These are 30 words you used this week without knowing they were Jewish. Now let us begin. Number 30. Bagel. The word comes from the Yiddish bagel. It was first recorded in the 1610 community regulations of Krakow, Poland, where the city council decreed that bagels be given as gifts to women after childbirth. Eastern European Jewish immigrants brought the bagel to Britain and America in the late 19th century. The British bagel market alone was valued at over £120 million in 2023. Everyone knows a bagel is Jewish. Almost nobody knows it was once a maternity gift in 17th century Poland. A bagel is a word most people could guess, but the next word on our list has crossed so far into everyday English that people use it in boardrooms, courtrooms, and kitchens without a second thought. Number 29. Kosher. From the Hebrew kasher, meaning fit, proper, or legitimate. It originally refers to food prepared according to Jewish dietary law, but it long ago escaped the kitchen. That deal does not seem kosher. Is this arrangement kosher? The Oxford English Dictionary traces this figurative use to at least 1896. In British English, kosher as slang for legitimate or above board has been common since the mid-20th century. Cockney slang adopted it readily, a Hebrew word from the laws of Leviticus, used by market traders in Whitechapel to mean the real deal. From a word that crossed from the kitchen to the courtroom, we move to a word that describes a quality the British have always quietly admired. Number 28. Chutzpah. It comes from the Yiddish chutzpah, which itself derives from the Hebrew word for audacity or nerve. It entered mainstream English through mid-20th century American media. Leo Rosten, in his 1968 book, The Joys of Yiddish, gave it a definition that has never been bettered. He described it as the quality of a man who kills both his parents and then begs the court for mercy on the grounds that he is an orphan. The word now appears in every major English dictionary. It is used in British broadsheets, in the House of Commons, and on the BBC without translation or explanation. Number 27. Schmuck. This one hides a secret. In Yiddish, the literal meaning of schmuck is jewel or ornament. It was a euphemism for a part of the male anatomy, which then evolved into an insult meaning a foolish or contemptible person. First documented in American English in the 1890s on the Lower East Side of New York City. Most speakers today have no idea they are using a Yiddish anatomical euphemism from the shtetls of Eastern Europe. Number 26. Kibbutz, a Hebrew word meaning a collective farming community in Israel based on shared ownership. It entered English after the founding of the State of Israel in 1948. Thousands of young British volunteers traveled to kibbutzim in the 1960s and 70s. According to the Jewish Chronicle, an estimated 60,000 British citizens volunteered on kibbutzim between 1960 and 2000. A generation of young Britons carried this Hebrew word home in their luggage. Number 25. Klutz. From the Yiddish klotz, meaning a wooden block or log. By extension, a clumsy person. It entered American English in the 1960s and spread globally through television. Now used so casually in British English that most speakers assume it is simply slang with no particular origin. From words that still feel faintly Yiddish, we move to one that has burrowed so deep into English it sounds entirely native. Number 24. Schmooze. From the Yiddish shmooen, meaning to chat, which itself comes from the Hebrew shmuot, meaning rumors or news. It entered American English in the late 19th century. By the mid-20th century, it had crossed the Atlantic, Today, it is standard vocabulary in business, media, and politics. Schmoozing clients, schmoozing at a party. The Financial Times uses the word without italics or explanation. A Hebrew word for rumors became a Yiddish word for chatting, and then became an English word for networking. Number 23. Nosh. From the Yiddish nashan, meaning to nibble or snack, this word entered British English so thoroughly that many Britons consider it a native English word. Having a nosh, a proper nosh up. It sounds as English as fish and chips. The Oxford English Dictionary traces its first English usage to 1957. It arrived through the large Yiddish-speaking communities of London's East End. Whitechapel, Stepney, Spitalfields. Jewish families who settled along Brick Lane in the late 19th century brought this word with them from Lithuania and Poland. When someone in a British pub says fancy a nosh, they have no reason to think the word traveled from a shtetl on the Baltic coast to Brick Lane to their local. But it did. A word that sounds as British as a Sunday roast. But the next word on our list traveled even further, from a Yiddish workshop in Eastern Europe to the edge of outer space. Number 22, glitch. From the Yiddish glitchen, meaning to slip or slide. This word entered mainstream English on the 20th of February 1962. When astronaut John Glenn used it during the Mercury space program to describe a technical malfunction. In his memoir Into Orbit, Glenn wrote that literally a glitch is a spike or change in voltage in an electrical current. The word was already common among Yiddish-speaking engineers and technicians in the American aerospace industry. Jewish engineers at NASA had been using it informally for years. Glenn simply put it on the record. Today, it is one of the most commonly used words in technology worldwide. Every frozen screen, every crashed app. The word people reach for came from Yiddish. Number 21. Shtick. From the Yiddish shtick, meaning a piece, a bit, or a comic routine. It entered English through the American entertainment industry, vaudeville stages, and stand-up comedy clubs, all heavily shaped by Jewish performers like the Marx Brothers, Milton Berle, and Mel Brooks. Today, it is standard English. That is his shtick, meaning someone's signature act or gimmick. Number 20. Schlepp. From the Yiddish schleppen, meaning to drag or haul something tedious. It is a real schlepp to get there, used across Britain without any awareness of its origin. First documented in English in the 1920s among immigrant communities on New York's Lower East Side. Number 19. Spiel. From the Yiddish shepil, meaning a play or game. In English, it means a lengthy or persuasive sales pitch. He gave me the whole spiel. It entered English in the late 19th century. British estate agents, car salesmen, and politicians all give spiels without knowing they are speaking Yiddish. Number 18. Schmaltz. In Yiddish, this word literally means rendered chicken fat, a staple of Ashkenazi Jewish cooking across Eastern Europe. In English, it came to mean excessive sentimentality, a schmaltzy film, a schmaltzy love song. The metaphor is pure Yiddish humor. Something so rich and heavy, it becomes overwhelming. Number 17. Tchotchke. From the Yiddish tchotchke, meaning a small decorative trinket or knick-knack, pronounced roughly chochki. It is common in American English and increasingly used in British English, particularly in interior design and lifestyle media. The word a grandmother might use to describe the ornaments on her mantelpiece without ever knowing she was speaking Yiddish. Number 16. Mensch. In Yiddish, the word literally means a human being, but in usage, it means something far more. A person of integrity, a person of honor and decency. The highest compliment in Yiddish culture. He is a real mensch, meaning someone who does the right thing when no one is watching. 6 letters that carry an entire ethical philosophy. From words that entered English through immigration and culture, we now move to words that slipped in through an entirely different door, and most people have no idea they are even loanwords at all. Number 15. Maven. From the Yiddish maven, which comes from the Hebrew mevin, meaning one who understands. In English, it means an expert or connoisseur. She is a real maven when it comes to antiques. The word was popularized by Malcolm Gladwell in his 2000 book, The Tipping Point, which identified mavens as key cultural influencers. But it had been in American English since at least the 1950s. Most people who use it have no idea it comes from a Hebrew word meaning understanding. Number 14. Kibitz. From the Yiddish kibitzen, meaning to offer unwanted advice, especially while watching someone else's card game or chess match. Stop kibitzing, a phrase heard in British bridge clubs and chess halls for decades. The Yiddish itself borrowed from the German word kibitz, the name for a lapwing, a bird known for its noisy and intrusive behavior. A German bird name, filtered through Yiddish, became an English verb for backseat driving. Number 13. Tush, from the Yiddish tukis, meaning the buttocks. Softened in American English to tush or tushy, now used by parents across the English-speaking world when talking to young children. Sit on your tush. Gentle, harmless, domestic. And entirely Yiddish. Number 12. Cabal. This is where the story takes a turn that genuinely startles. Cabal, meaning a secret political faction or conspiracy, derives from the medieval Latin Kabbalah, which comes from the Hebrew word Kabbalah, meaning reception or tradition. The word entered English in the 17th century. During the reign of Charles II, it described a committee of 5 ministers whose surnames happened to form the acronym CABAL. But the word predates that coincidence by centuries, tracing back to medieval Latin Kabbalah, borrowed directly from Hebrew. Every time a British newspaper describes a political cabal at Westminster, it is echoing a Hebrew word for mystical hidden knowledge. Number 11. Shibboleth, Hebrew, directly from the Book of Judges, Chapter 12. After a battle roughly 3,000 years ago, the victorious Gileadites needed a way to identify fleeing enemy soldiers at the River Jordan. They chose the word shibboleth, meaning an ear of grain. The defeated Ephraimites could not pronounce the SH sound and said sibboleth instead. Those who failed the test were killed, 42,000 men according to the text. In modern English, a shibboleth means a custom or phrase that distinguishes one group from another. A social password, a class marker, used regularly in British political commentary and literary criticism. A word from a 3,000-year-old battlefield on the banks of the Jordan, still alive in the opinion pages of the Times. From words that entered through culture and mysticism, we now cross into the deepest layer of all. These next words entered English through the most widely read book in the history of the language, the Bible itself. They were carried from Hebrew into Greek, from Greek into Latin, and from Latin into English by translators who did not always realize they were permanently planting Hebrew words into the foundations of a language that did not yet exist. Number 10. Mammon. Aramaic and Hebrew, meaning wealth, riches, or material greed. The word was used in the Sermon on the Mount, recorded in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 6. You cannot serve God and mammon. That single sentence, spoken 2,000 years ago on a hillside in Galilee, planted this Semitic word permanently into English. Every time a politician warns against the worship of mammon, they are speaking a word from the ancient languages of the Middle East. Number 9. Cherub, from the Hebrew cherub. The plural is cheruvim, anglicized to cherubim. In the original Hebrew Bible, cherubim are not the chubby winged infants of Renaissance paintings. They are fearsome, multi-winged celestial beings who guard the entrance to the Garden of Eden with a flaming sword. The book of Ezekiel describes them as having 4 faces and 4 wings covered with eyes. The word entered English through every major Bible translation. It now means a sweet, innocent child with rosy cheeks, a meaning that would baffle the ancient Hebrew writers who imagined them as terrifying guardians of the divine. Number 8. Seraph, from the Hebrew seraph, meaning burning one. The plural is seraphim, anglicized to seraphim. They appear in the book of Isaiah chapter 6, where the prophet describes six winged beings attending the throne of God, calling holy, holy, holy. The word has been in English since the earliest Bible translations. Every church in Britain that sings of seraphim is singing a Hebrew word. Number 7. Behemoth, from the Hebrew behemoth. It appears in the book of Job, chapter 40, where God describes a colossal creature of immense power. He moveth his tail like a cedar. Scholars have debated for centuries whether the behemoth was a hippopotamus, an elephant, or something else entirely. But the word marched straight out of that ancient poem and into modern English. A corporate behemoth, a behemoth of a ship, used in British newspapers and casual conversation every single day. Pure Hebrew from a 3,000-year-old poem about the overwhelming power of creation. Number 6. Leviathan, from the Hebrew Leviathan, also from the book of Job. A great sea monster, a creature of chaos and primal power that only God can subdue. The philosopher Thomas Hobbes used it as the title of his 1651 political masterwork, one of the most influential books in British intellectual history. Hobbes argued that the state itself was a leviathan, a vast entity created by the collective will of the people. The word has shaped British political thought for nearly 4 centuries. Every time a commentator reaches for the word Leviathan, they are reaching into the book of Job. Number 5. Armageddon, from the Hebrew Har Megiddo, meaning the Mount of Megiddo. Megiddo is a real place in modern-day Israel, an ancient city in the Jezreel Valley where armies clashed repeatedly across millennia. The book of Revelation, chapter 16, names it as the site of the final battle between good and evil. In modern English, Armageddon means any catastrophic event. Nuclear Armageddon, financial Armageddon, climate Armageddon. Every headline that invokes this word is invoking a Hebrew place name from the hills of northern Israel, a place you can still visit today. The ruins are open to tourists. Number 4. Babel, Hebrew. From the book of Genesis, chapter 11. While the English verb to babble sounds remarkably similar, it actually comes from Middle English and Germanic roots imitating a child's speech, rather than deriving from the Hebrew word. But the story of the tower itself gave us the noun babel, meaning a confused noise of voices. Number 3. Jubilee. From the Hebrew yavel, meaning a ram's horn trumpet. In the book of Leviticus, chapter 25, God commands that every 50th year shall be declared a jubilee. In that year, all debts are forgiven, all slaves are freed, all land is returned to its original owners. A radical reset built into the legal code of ancient Israel. The word entered English through William Tyndale's Bible translation in 1530. For British viewers, this word carries extraordinary resonance. The Silver Jubilee of 1977, the Golden Jubilee of 2002, the Platinum Jubilee of Queen Elizabeth II in 2022, street parties in every village, commemorative mugs on every shelf, Union Jack bunting strung across every lane, an entire nation celebrating. And the word they used for all of it, Jubilee, is Hebrew from the book of Leviticus. Every flag and every commemorative plate, named with a word that originally described the sound of a ram's horn trumpet echoing across the hills of ancient Israel, announcing that the slaves were free. Number 2. Scapegoat. This word does not merely come from Hebrew. It was invented to translate Hebrew. In 1530, William Tyndale was translating the book of Leviticus into English for the first time. He reached chapter 16, which describes the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar. The ritual required 2 goats. One was sacrificed. The other had the sins of the entire people symbolically placed upon its head by the high priest and was driven out into the wilderness, sent away to a mysterious figure called Azazel. Tyndale needed an English word for this goat. No such word existed, so he created it. He called it the scapegoat. The goat that escapes into the desert carrying the sins of others. Within a generation, the phrase was shortened to scapegoat. Today, it is one of the most commonly used words in the English language. In politics, in workplaces, in schools, in families, he was made the scapegoat. The word exists only because a 16th century scholar sat down with a Hebrew text and realized that English had no word for what the ancient Jewish priests did on their holiest day. Every time anyone uses the word scapegoat, they are speaking a word handmade from a Jewish holy day by an Englishman who was later executed for the crime of translating the Bible. A word that was literally forged from the Hebrew Bible by an English translator is remarkable. But the final word on our list is older than all of them. It is spoken more times per day than any other word on this countdown. It is spoken in every country on earth, and almost no one knows where it came from. Number 1. Amen, Hebrew. It means so be it, or truly, or it is firm. It first appears in the Book of Numbers and the Book of Deuteronomy, roughly 3,000 years ago. And here is what makes it unlike any other word on this list. It was never translated. When the Hebrew Bible was translated into Greek by scholars in Alexandria around 250 years before the Common Era, they did not replace amen with a Greek word. They kept it. When the Greek was translated into Latin by St. Jerome in the 4th century, he kept it. When the Latin was translated into English by Tyndale, and later by the scholars of the King James Bible in 1611, they kept it. When the Quran was composed in Arabic in the 7th century, the Arabic form Amin was kept. It passed through every language barrier in human history, unchanged. Today, it is spoken by an estimated 2.4 billion Christians, 1.8 billion Muslims, and 15 million Jews. Over 4 billion people. It is spoken in churches across Britain every Sunday morning. In mosques across the Middle East every Friday afternoon, in synagogues every Sabbath, at funerals and at weddings, at christenings and at prayers before meals, at Remembrance Sunday services at the cenotaph, at the coronation of King Charles III in Westminster Abbey in 2023. The Archbishop of Canterbury spoke it, the congregation spoke it, the nation heard it. A 3,000-year-old Hebrew word spoken billions of times every single day by people who have never studied a word of Hebrew in their lives. The word that closes every prayer in every church in Britain is the same word that opened prayers in the ancient temple in Jerusalem 3,000 years ago. It has never been translated. It has never needed to be.